The station floated at the center of the galaxy like a metal flower made of 1,000 petals. It was called the Conclave of Voices, and it was the most important place in all of known space. Here, the 12 elder races met to decide the fate of worlds. They had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. They believed they would rule it forever. Ambassador stood at the window of her small quarters and watched the alien ships drift past. Each one was bigger than anything humanity had ever built. Their hulls shimmered with colors that had no names in any human language. She counted 47 warships from the Dominion alone. They were the most powerful of the elder races. They were tall creatures covered in dark scales, with teeth like broken glass and eyes like pools of oil. They had conquered 600 worlds before humans learned to make fire. Was 53 years old. She had gray hair cut short and a face full of lines from years of smiling and frowning in equal measure. She wore a simple blue uniform with the United Earth symbol on her shoulder. She carried no weapons. She had no guards. She had come to this place with only one ship. The ship was called the Olive Branch. It was a diplomatic cruiser, small and lightly armed. It looked like a toy compared to the massive vessels of the elder races. When it had first arrived at the station 3 days ago, they had laughed at it. They called it a peasant's fishing boat. They asked if humanity had gotten lost on the way to a real civilization. Had smiled and said nothing. She was very good at smiling and saying nothing. Today was the day of the formal hearing. The conclave would decide whether humanity could join their great alliance. For 40 years, humans had traveled among the stars. They had built 12 colony worlds. They had met other species and traded with them. But the elder races had ignored them until now. Humanity was young. Humanity was small. Humanity was not worth their attention. But humans kept expanding. They kept building. They kept asking questions. Finally, the conclave had agreed to meet with them. It was not kindness that brought this meeting. It was annoyance. The elder races wanted to put humanity in its place. They wanted to show these young creatures who truly ruled the stars. Walked through the long corridors of the station toward the grand forum. The hallways were made of a white stone that seemed to glow from within. Alien diplomats from a dozen species watched her pass. Some looked curious. Most looked amused. A few looked at her the way a person might look at an insect that had crawled onto their dinner plate. She entered the grand forum and stopped to take it all in. The room was enormous. The ceiling rose so high that clouds actually formed near the top. Thousands of seats circled a central platform where speakers would stand. Most of the seats were empty, but the front rows held the representatives of the 12 elder races. They sat in their designated areas, separated by species, each group wearing the colors and symbols of their civilization. The section was the largest. High Arbiter sat at its center. He was the leader of the delegation, a massive creature nearly 3 meters tall. His scales were the color of dried blood, and golden rings pierced the ridges above his eyes. He watched approach with a smile that showed far too many teeth. Walked to the speaker's platform. She stood alone. Behind her there was no delegation, no advisors, no military officers, just one human woman in a blue uniform. She bowed respectfully to the conclave. Honored members of the Conclave of Voices, I am Ambassador of United Earth. I come to you in peace, seeking friendship and cooperation between our peoples. Her voice echoed in the vast chamber. For a moment there was silence. Then they began to laugh. It started with a deep, rumbling sound that shook his massive chest. Then his aides joined in. Then the warriors standing behind them. The laughter spread to other delegations. They made a clicking sound that served as their version of mockery. They hooted and slapped their tentacles together. Stood perfectly still. She kept the small smile on her face. She waited. Raised one clawed hand and the laughter slowly died. He leaned forward in his seat, still grinning. "Peace," he said. The translator device made his voice sound like stones grinding together. "The little human speaks of peace. How touching." "Tell me, Ambassador," he continued, How many ships did your species bring to these peace talks? One High Arbiter. One, he let the word hang in the air. We have 400 warships within calling distance of this station. They have 200. Even the who are not known for their military strength have brought 50 vessels, and humanity sends one ship. He stood up from his seat. At his full height, he towered over everything in the room. Do you know what this tells me, little human? It tells me that your species is weak. It tells me that you have nothing. It tells me that you came here to beg for scraps from our table. Smile never changed. We came here to talk, High Arbiter. We hoped that talk would be enough. His eyes narrowed. Something flickered across his face. It might have been confusion. It might have been suspicion. But it passed quickly, replaced by the arrogance that came from 10,000 years of dominance. We shall see, he said. We shall see what your hope is worth. He sat back down. The hearing would begin tomorrow. The elder races would present their terms, and would stand alone on that platform and listen to every word. That night she sent a single message to Earth. It contained only 4 words. They are not listening. The reply came an hour later. It was even shorter. We expected that. Proceed. Read the message twice. Then she deleted it and went to sleep. Tomorrow would be a long day. Tomorrow she would find out if peace was truly possible. And if it was not, she would find out what came next. The grand forum was full when arrived the next morning. Word had spread through the station that the humans were being judged today. Thousands of aliens filled the seats, eager to watch the young species learn its place in the galaxy. They came to see humanity humbled. They came to be entertained. Walked to the speaker's platform and stood with her hands folded in front of her. She had slept well. She had eaten a good breakfast. She was ready for whatever came next. High Arbiter rose from his seat. He held a data tablet in his clawed hand. The terms of humanity's admission to the conclave had been written on it. Could tell from the way he smiled that she would not like what she heard. The conclave has deliberated, announced. His voice boomed through the chamber. We have decided to be generous. We will allow humanity to join our great alliance, but there are conditions. He began to read from the tablet. First, humanity will surrender 3 of its 12 colony worlds. These worlds will be given to elder race expansion projects. Your people living on those worlds will be relocated. Felt her jaw tighten. 3 worlds. Billions of people forced from their homes, but she said nothing. She kept listening. Second, all human military vessels will be decommissioned. Humanity will maintain only a small police force for internal matters. Your species has shown aggressive tendencies. This is for the safety of the galaxy. The crowd murmured in approval. The warriors nodded to each other. Of course, the dangerous young species had to be disarmed. It was only logical. Third, humanity will serve a probationary period of 500 years. During this time, you will have no voting rights in the conclave. You will follow our laws and accept our decisions without question. 500 years, 20 generations of humans living as second-class citizens. Hands trembled slightly, but she kept them hidden behind her back. Fourth, paused here and his smile grew wider. Human faster-than-light technology will be audited by the Conclave Science Council. Your jump drives are crude but interesting. We wish to study them. For safety purposes, of course. Understood. They wanted to steal human technology. They would take it apart, learn its secrets, and never give anything back. This was not an alliance. This was conquest with pretty words. Lowered the tablet. These are our terms. They are fair. They are generous. You will accept them now. Looked at him. I need to consult with my government. I request time to send a message to Earth and receive their response. The chamber went quiet. Scales darkened with anger. He was not used to being questioned. You request time. His voice dropped to a dangerous growl. No, you do not make requests here, little human. You accept what you are given. He stepped down from his elevated seat and walked toward her. Each footstep shook the floor. He stopped just a few meters away, towering over her like a mountain of scales and teeth. "Let me be clear," he said. "You will accept these terms today, right now, or your fledgling species will be designated a galactic threat." He leaned closer. His breath smelled like copper and rot. "And galactic threats are eliminated." Behind him, the other elder races nodded in agreement. The representative, a creature that looked like a walking jellyfish made of crystal, spoke up. "Perhaps humanity should be quarantined. For the safety of civilized species, we cannot allow such aggressive primitives to spread unchecked." Understood what quarantine meant. It meant a blockade. It meant starvation. It meant extinction by slow degrees, or extinction by orbital bombardment if the humans tried to fight back. She looked around the chamber. Thousands of alien eyes stared back at her. She saw no sympathy, no mercy, no doubt. These beings had decided humanity's fate before she ever arrived. The peace talks were never real. They were just a show, a formality before the execution. Closed her eyes. She thought about Earth. She thought about the blue oceans and green forests. She thought about the children playing in parks, the cities full of life, the dreams of a species reaching for the stars. She thought about what humanity had been through to get here. The wars, the plagues, the disasters. Every time they had been knocked down, they had gotten back up. Every time someone had tried to destroy them, they had survived. They did not come this far to kneel. Opened her eyes, she looked directly at. "Then I am afraid peace talks have failed." Laughed. It was a genuine laugh full of cruel amusement. "Failed? And what will you do about it, little human? Your single ship against the combined might of 12 civilizations, against 400 warships. You have nothing." Smiled. It was not the diplomatic smile she had worn before. This smile was different. It was the smile of someone who knew something others did not. "You misunderstand, High Arbiter. The olive branch was never our fleet." She paused. "It was our invitation, our way of giving you a chance to reconsider." His laughter faded. A small flicker of doubt crossed his face. Touched the communication device in her ear. When she spoke, her voice was calm and steady. "Captain, signal the shadow line. Authorization code, speak softly." For a moment, nothing happened. Then every alarm on the station began to scream. His data tablet lit up with emergency messages. His officers were shouting in his earpiece. The lights in the grand forum flickered and turned red. Stood perfectly still on the platform. Her smile had not changed. "High Arbiter," she said softly, "I think you should look outside." Turned and ran toward the nearest window. The other representatives followed, pushing and shoving in their panic. They pressed against the transparent walls and looked out into space. And they saw the stars disappear. The stars did not actually disappear. Something had moved in front of them. Something so large that it blocked out the light from entire sections of the sky. Ships, thousands of ships. They emerged from fold space in perfect formation. Each jump created a flash of blue light that lasted only a second, but there were so many of them that the flashes blended together into a wall of lightning that surrounded the station on all sides. Dreadnoughts came first. These were the largest vessels in the human fleet, each one 5 kilometers long and covered in weapons. Their hulls were painted gray and black, and they moved with the slow confidence of predators that feared nothing. Behind them came the battleships, hundreds of them. Their engines burned bright orange as they took their positions. Their gun ports were open and their shields were raised. Then came the carriers. Each carrier held 200 fighter craft and 50 bomber squadrons. They spread out in a wide arc, creating a net of steel around the station. Then came the cruisers and destroyers and frigates. They filled the spaces between the larger ships like schools of fish swimming through the bodies of whales. And they kept coming, more and more ships pouring out of fold space in an endless stream. The flashes of light continued for a full minute before finally stopping. When it was over, 3,000 human warships surrounded the conclave of voices. The Grand Forum had gone completely silent. The aliens pressed against the windows could not move. They could not speak. They could only stare at the wall of metal and fire that had appeared from nowhere. High Arbiter's scales had turned from dark red to pale gray, the color of fear. His officers were screaming numbers in his ear. 3,000 ships, 1,500 dreadnoughts and battleships, combined firepower exceeding anything that could assemble in 6 months. The humans had brought enough weapons to crack the station open like an egg and destroy every Elder race fleet within 10 light years. And they had been hiding in fold space the entire time, waiting, silent, patient. A voice came through every speaker on the station. It was deep and calm, with just a hint of cold anger beneath the surface. "This is Admiral James of the United Earth, Armada to the Galactic Conclave." In the Grand Forum, watched the chaos unfold around her. She had not moved from the speaker's platform. Her hands were still folded in front of her. Her expression had not changed. The Admiral continued speaking. "3 days ago, our ambassador came to you with an offer of peace. She extended her hand in friendship. She asked only for fair treatment and mutual respect." On every screen in the station, an image appeared. It was the face of Admiral. He was an old man with dark skin and white hair cut close to his skull. His eyes were brown and tired and very, very hard. Behind him, through the windows of his command bridge, the lights of the human fleet stretched out to infinity. "Instead of friendship, you offered slavery. Instead of respect, you offered threats. You told our ambassador that humanity would be eliminated if we did not surrender our worlds, our ships, and our freedom." Tried to speak, but his voice came out as a croak. His throat had gone dry. "Let me be clear about something," Admiral said. "Humanity did not come to you because we are weak. We came because we hoped we did not have to be strong. We sent 1 ship because we wanted peace. We brought 3,000 because we planned for war." The image on the screens changed. It now showed a tactical display of the space around the station. The red dots representing Elder race ships were scattered and disorganized. The blue dots representing human ships formed a perfect sphere around them. The humans had complete control of every approach vector, every escape route, every tactical position. "The olive branch was not our fleet, High Arbiter. It was a test. We wanted to see if you would treat us with honor. You failed." Finally moved. She walked away from the speaker's platform and approached the window where stood Frozen. She looked up at him with the same calm expression she had worn throughout the talks. "You asked what we would do," she said quietly. "Now you know." Forced himself to speak. "This is madness. Even if you destroy this station, our will retaliate. They will hunt humanity to extinction." Shook her head slowly. "You still do not understand. Look at your tactical display, Arbiter. Look at where our ships are positioned." He looked, and his pale scales turned even paler. The human fleet was not just surrounding the station. It was positioned at exact coordinates that corresponded to the fold space routes to every Elder race. The humans had not come to destroy a station. They had come to cut off the head of the entire conclave. "If we wanted you dead," said, "you would be dead, all of you, your fleets, your stations, your worlds. We could have done it before you ever knew we were here." She paused to let that sink in. "But we did not, because that is not why we came. We came to talk. We came to find another way. And despite everything you have done today, we are still willing to talk." Admiral's voice returned to the speakers. "The conclave of voices has 1 hour to send a delegation to the flagship, remember. We will discuss new terms, fair terms, and when we are finished, there will be peace between our peoples." His voice hardened. "Or there will be nothing at all. The choice is yours." The speakers went silent. The screens went dark. And 3,000 human warships held their positions, guns ready, waiting for an answer. In the Grand Forum, Arbiter looked at Ambassador. She was still smiling that strange, sad smile. "Why?" he managed to ask. "Why bring all this power if you truly wanted peace?" Looked out at the fleet that had followed her across the galaxy. When she spoke, her voice was soft but carried to every ear in the chamber. "Because, Arbiter, we know what we are. We know what we are capable of, and we hoped so very much that we would not have to show you." The shuttle crossed the distance between the station and the human flagship in 15 minutes. Arbiter sat in the passenger compartment with 5 other elder race representatives. None of them spoke. They had nothing to say. Through the small windows, they watched the human ships pass by. Up close, the vessels were even more frightening. Every surface was covered in weapon systems. Missile tubes lined the hulls like scales on a snake. Energy cannons jutted out at sharp angles, their barrels thick enough to drive a transport through. These ships had not been built for exploration or trade. They had been built for one purpose only. The shuttle docked with the Remember. It was a dreadnought, 5 kilometers of armored death floating in the void. Armed guards in black uniforms escorted the delegation through long corridors lit by harsh white lights. The walls were bare metal. There were no decorations, no art, no beauty. This was a machine designed to kill. They entered a large conference room. A long table filled the center, surrounded by chairs. At the far end sat Admiral and Ambassador. Behind them, through a massive window, the lights of the human fleet stretched out forever. The aliens took their seats. For a moment, everyone was silent. Then spoke. His voice was rough, stripped of its earlier arrogance. "You have made your point, Admiral. You have power. We acknowledge this. Now tell us what you want." Admiral studied him with those tired, hard eyes. "What we want has not changed, Arbiter. We want peace. We want to join the galactic community as equals. We want to trade, to learn, to grow alongside other species." "Then why this?" The representative gestured at the window. "Why bring weapons of war to a peace negotiation?" Leaned forward, "Because we know how the universe works. We learned that lesson a long time ago." She touched a control on the table. A holographic display flickered to life above them. "Let me show you something." Images began to appear. They were from Earth's history, old photographs, ancient paintings, video recordings from centuries past. The first image showed a city on fire, buildings collapsed, bodies lay in the streets. "This was called the Holocaust," said. "One group of humans decided that another group was not truly human. They killed 6 million people. Men, women, children. They built factories designed only for murder." The aliens shifted uncomfortably. Scales had darkened again. The images changed. A mushroom cloud rose over a ruined city. This was the first use of atomic weapons. One bomb killed 80,000 people in a single second. We built these weapons ourselves. We used them on ourselves. More images, more death, more horror. "This is what humans are capable of," said quietly. "We did not learn violence from others. We invented it. We perfected it. We turned it into an art form and then used it against our own brothers and sisters." She paused. The holographic display showed a timeline of human conflicts. The numbers were staggering. Millions dead, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, wars that lasted decades, genocides that erased entire peoples from existence. "In our short history, we have killed more of our own kind than you can imagine. We have burned cities, poisoned lands, and shattered nations. We have done terrible things for terrible reasons, sometimes for no reason at all." Admiral spoke now. His voice was heavy with the weight of memory. "You asked why we brought this fleet, Arbiter. The answer is simple. We brought it because we know exactly what happens when diplomacy fails. We have seen it. We have lived it. We carry the scars of it in our DNA." He stood and walked to the window. The fleet spread out behind him like a steel ocean. "Every ship out there represents a lesson we learned the hard way. Every weapon system, every tactical formation, every strategy we have developed came from centuries of fighting ourselves. We got very, very good at war, not because we wanted to, because we had no choice. He turned back to face the alien delegation. When the conclave threatened to eliminate humanity, you thought you were dealing with primitive creatures who would bow down in fear. You were wrong. You were threatening a species that has been eliminating itself for thousands of years. We are still here. Ask yourself why. His voice was barely a whisper. Because you are monsters. Yes, agreed. We are. We have always been. But here is the part you do not understand. She stood and walked around the table until she was standing directly in front of. We know we are monsters. We have spent the last 300 years trying to become something else. The holographic display changed again. Now it showed different images. Humans building schools, humans feeding the hungry, humans healing the sick, scientists working together across old borders, artists creating beauty from pain, children of former enemies playing together. After every war we rebuilt. After every genocide we swore never again. After every horror we reached for something better. We did not always succeed. We failed many times, but we never stopped trying. Looked at with something that might have been pity. That is why we came with one ship first, because we hoped. We genuinely hoped that this time would be different, that we could reach across the darkness and find allies instead of enemies. Admiral returned to his seat. We brought the fleet because hope is not enough. Trust must be earned, and until it is earned, we will be ready. He placed a data tablet on the table and slid it toward. These are our terms. You will find them fair. Equal membership in the conclave, mutual defense agreements, open trade, technology sharing that benefits all parties. Picked up the tablet, he read the terms carefully, his eyes widened. These are generous. After what we said to you, after we threatened your worlds, he looked up. Why, you have the power to demand anything, to take anything. Why offer mercy? Smiled. It was the saddest smile had ever seen. Because this is who we are trying to become, Arbiter. We brought the fleet to show you who we were. We offer peace to show you who we want to be. She extended her hand toward him, an ancient human gesture, an offer of trust. Every day we choose. Every single day we look at our history and we decide whether to repeat it or rise above it. Today, we choose peace. We choose cooperation. We choose to believe that the universe can be better than what we have seen. Her eyes met his. We are giving you the same choice we give ourselves. What will you decide? Stared at its extended hand. Such a simple gesture, such a small thing. But behind it lay the weight of human history, 3,000 warships, and a choice that would shape the future of the galaxy. He looked around the conference room. The other elder race representatives were watching him. For 10,000 years, the had led the conclave. They had made the decisions. They had set the tone. What did next would determine whether that leadership continued or ended in fire. He thought about what he had seen in the holographic display. The wars, the genocides, the bombs that could erase cities. Humanity had done all of that to themselves. They had nearly destroyed their own species multiple times, and yet they had survived. They had crawled out of the ashes again and again. They had built starships and reached for the heavens. And now they sat across from him with enough firepower to end his civilization, offering peace. Reached out and took his hand. It was warm, soft, so fragile compared to his armored scales, but there was strength in that grip, the strength of a species that refused to die. I accept your terms, said. His voice was rough but clear. On behalf of the Dominion, I accept. One by one, the other representatives nodded their agreement. All 12 elder races. They had come to this room expecting to dictate terms to primitive creatures. They would leave as equals. Admiral allowed himself a small smile. Then let the record show that on this day, humanity and the Galactic Conclave have agreed to a treaty of peace and cooperation. The negotiations took 3 more days. Details were discussed, borders were drawn, trade agreements were written, military coordination protocols were established. It was long and tedious work, but it was the work of building instead of destroying. On the fourth day, the treaty was signed. Stood on the observation deck of the Remember and watched the alien delegations return to their ships. The human fleet still held position around the station, but the gun ports were closed now. The shields were down. The weapons that could have ended civilization sat silent and cold. Admiral joined her at the window. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. "Do you think it will last?" finally asked. "Do you think they will keep the peace?" The Admiral considered the question carefully. "I think they are afraid of us now. Fear is not trust, but it is a beginning. In time, fear can become respect. Respect can become friendship. Friendship can become something real." He paused. "Or it could all fall apart tomorrow. That is the nature of peace. It must be chosen again every single day." Nodded slowly. "Then we will keep choosing it for as long as we can." The fleet began to withdraw. One by one, the human ships powered up their fold drives and disappeared in flashes of blue light. They had come as a warning. They left as a promise. 1 year later, the first human representative took a seat in the conclave of voices. Her name was Maria, and she was the daughter of the captain who had commanded the Olive Branch. She sat among the elder races as an equal, with full voting rights and a voice that carried the same weight as any other. 5 years later, human peacekeeping ships patrolled the borders between rival species. They stopped wars before they could start. They protected the weak from the strong. They did the work that no one else was willing to do. 20 years later, the Institute opened on the station. It trained diplomats from every species in the art of negotiation. Its motto was carved above the entrance in 100 languages: "Seek peace with open hands. Carry strength in your heart." 50 years later, the galaxy had transformed. The old ways of domination and conquest had faded. The elder races still held power, but they shared it now. Human ideas about cooperation and mutual benefit had spread to every corner of known space. Wars still happened, but they were smaller and shorter. Problems were solved with words more often than weapons. And in the halls of power across 1,000 worlds, a new doctrine was taught. They called it the human doctrine. Its principles were simple: always try peace first. Really try. Send your diplomats with open hands and open hearts. Listen to grievances. Offer fair terms. Give every chance for enemies to become friends. But never forget what waits behind the smile. Because humanity had taught the galaxy an important lesson. The most dangerous creatures in the universe were not the ones who loved war. They were the ones who hated it so much that they became masters of it, just so they could end it forever. Arbiter lived for another 200 years after that day on the Remember. In his final memoir, he wrote about the moment that changed his life. "I have ruled worlds," he wrote. "I have commanded fleets. I have crushed enemies and claimed victories beyond counting. But the bravest thing I ever did was take the hand of a human woman who had every reason to destroy me and chose mercy instead." The humans have a saying, "Speak softly and carry a big stick." I thought I understood it when I first heard it. I did not. The true meaning is not about the stick. It is about the choice to speak softly when you could simply swing. Humanity came to us with one ship because they hoped we would listen. They brought 3,000 because they knew we might not. In the end, we listened, and the galaxy is better for it. I do not know if humans are truly the monsters their history suggests, but I know this: if they are, then they are monsters who chose to become something else. And that choice, made again and again in the face of their own darkness, may be the most human thing of all. The memoir ended with a single line that would be quoted for centuries. "They came in peace. They were prepared for war, and in the space between those two truths, they built a better universe." On Earth, Children grew up learning about the day humanity stood before the conclave. They learned about ambassador and admiral. They learned about the fleet that followed the olive branch across the stars. But most importantly, they learned the lesson that humanity had always known, the lesson written in blood across 10,000 years of history. Peace is not weakness. Peace is strength that has learned restraint. And the strongest hand is the one that can destroy everything and chooses to build instead. The stars burned on in their ancient patterns. Ships traveled between worlds. Species that had once been enemies now worked together. And humanity, the young species that had almost destroyed itself so many times, had found its place among the stars. Not as conquerors, not as victims, but as something new. As the ones who remembered and chose differently.